Right then, now we need to move along with some photo etch, because all our resin's nicely ready, nicely clean, nicely sort of fitting, but we need to get certain bits of photo etch on. We have, as you can see here, our gorgeous bit of resin ejector seat, and I've already got some of our photo etch seat belts on here. Now these seat belts are pretty sort of complicated, right, and the instructions are terrible. As fantastic as the instructions could have done with a bit more work, but I'm gonna have to sort of guide you through them, because you can get them wrong by following these instructions. But first off, before we sort of dive into that, we need to know what we need to put on and save for later. For instance, I've already cut off our instrument display panel, right, just here. And with this instrument display panel, it is going to glue onto our bit of resin just here. Now the problem is, we have got these lovely bits of instrument display panel dials and stuff, and what happens is these bit of photo etch will go on there, and we'll see the dials come through, and that's really cool, but we can't exactly sort of glue it onto all our resin, spray it, because then we're going to cover those things up. So these kind of things need to sort of be put to one side and sprayed separately, right? Also, you've got to make sure they fit as well, because they are such a tight fit. So I'm going to just, you know, show you that just putting it on here, this needs to be nice and flat, but there's, you know, maybe a bit of flash in areas just stopping that from going down, or we just need to do a little bit of thinning. I'm thinning a bit of resistance here, and it's just a case of sort of getting out a blade, right, and maybe sort of, I can see just a very, it really is just a tiny bit of flash, maybe just here, and I could just sort of slice down that, or we can use the 90-degree angle of our blade, right, and we can just sort of maybe scrape that there and just slightly shave it, right. We've got to be careful that we don't sort of shave too much, but just those little bits there, and it's just all about sort of, you know, we've done a little bit, now let's test fit, right. And like a lot of stuff with all this resin and all this photo etch, it's just a case of, okay, that's fitting a little bit better, but it could do with a bit more shaving here and there. So I'll do that off camera. It's just constantly shaving, make sure, and you just want that to be nice and flat, and then that will be ready to spray our photo etch separately and our bit of resin separately, and when it's all sort of painted and weathered and all this kind of stuff, we can sort of then glue those bits on. So starting off with our photo etch seat belts. Now these are tricky, right? This is going to take you a bit of time. It's going to be very fiddly. You sort of need to be sort of, you know, kind of a bit steady with your hands, but it's all about threading sort of, you know, our bits through bits of photo etch. So what we have here is what we're going to try and do. We've got this tiny little buckle thing. Right, and I just need to get it on some tweezers. Tweezers are going to be your friend for this, right? And what we want to do is, with it positioned like so, we are going to basically thread it through. And somehow I got that in first time. How about that? Right, and we've got that threaded through. Alright, so let's try and get you in a bit closer. You can sort of see this buckle threaded through. I'm going to pull it, you know, mostly all the way up there. Right, then what we want to do is sort of turn this over, right, and then we need to sort of bend it just right. You'll see, right, you'll see that there's sort of two sort of bits of detail there. You want to sort of bend it in the middle of them. Right, and we just want to give it a little bit of a bend. Now I can do this with tweezers, using one to sort of mark the position and then the other to bend it. Then we want to make sure our buckle comes down to that little crease bend that we've just done, wherever my buckle has gone. Right, and I think I'll put the buckle on in the wrong way. It's got to be pointing the other way. Hold on, have I got this right? Yeah, I had the buckle the wrong way around. Again, these instructions are really sort of hard to follow. So what you want to do is you want to now bend where I said, right? But you want to do it so as you're going to see the detail, right? So the bend is going to be like this. Then we get our buckle, right? So hopefully what you can see is our little buckle here is going to be sticking out in the right way. Right, so then we want to, again, this is all going to be very, very fiddly, but we want to bend it over, but with the buckle right where the bend is. Sorry if maybe you're going off camera a bit, but it is a bit hard to do it. So we want to get the bend just right, so I've kind of like gone a little bit wonky with that, but no problem, we can just try and move it across. Again, very, very fiddly. Right, and just trying to come in there. It is best to try and do it all with tweezers sort of much as possible. And just, there we go, just kind of bent that across. Right, and there we have our sort of first buckle nicely on there. We've got to do that the same, the opposite side as well. But what we're going to need to do as well is we've got some more pieces to go on. So I'm going to sort of do one side just to show you, and this the other side's basically the same. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention is cutting your photo etch off of these frets. I have just done a tutorial on that, so if you go to Genesis Models website, tutorial section, you will see a tutorial on how to cut your photo etch nicely off the fret, because there is a right way of doing it and a wrong way of doing it. But anyway, back to our seat belts just here. Where's my other? Here we go. Now with this as well, before we put on the next piece, there was also, oops, again, there's going to be a lot of this sort of dropping and all this kind of stuff. But what we've got to do is just slightly pull that back a little bit. Right, this bit of photo etch now, seatbelt, has now got to go through another buckle. Right, so hopefully we're getting this on camera. We've got this other buckle here. Right, and it's got two sort of eyelets. Right, you want to get it through the bottom. Alright, so how close can we get you? You might be able to just see that now. It's gone through the bottom one, and we can just sort of nicely pull that through like so. Right, and we need to use the other eyelet for another piece, right, which we've got just here. Now the instructions are a little bit sort of, you know, I don't know whether they've got the numbers the wrong way around or not, but you kind of always, whenever you do sort of like a bend, you want the detail like this. This has got the detail on this side. On the opposite side, it just looks like, you know, just kind of just shiny metal, and we don't really want to be seeing that most of the time. So this one now, according to the instructions, right, we've potentially got the wrong piece. But anyway, I've kind of found that, you know, going this way is just as fine. And what we're going to do, where we've just threaded through that bit of seat belt through the bottom eyelet, right, of our buckle. Oops, I think it's just such, sorry about this, it is a little bit sort of hard to hold these pieces and getting them into play, especially trying to keep you guys on camera. But anyway, right, we're now going to thread this through the top part of the buckle. Right, so it is crucial that the first one you feed through does go through the bottom, or you won't be able to get this one through, which is almost through, as you can see there. Then what you want to be doing is you want to equally bend this. Right, again, is not easy. Alright, and you want to just equally bend this so they kind of equally meet in the middle. So I'm just trying to get it sort of somewhere in the ballpark. Might have to bend the bottom bit of seatbelt out the way, and you want to sort of get them to reasonably meet equally. So I've just got that nicely bent nice and equally. Hopefully you can see with that one there. Then what it wants you to do is bend this piece around. Right, see how I'm sort of getting this tiny little piece, and it just wants you to bend it around as nice as possible. Right, now it doesn't matter if we kind of end up putting creases and stuff in the seat belt. Right, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's kind of better that you kind of end up with like a little crease in there. I mean, you know, we can just sort of bend this and make little creases if we wanted to, but you know, don't worry too much. Now the next thing we're going to do is we need to do a little bit of gluing. When it comes to gluing with photo etch, there is no one single glue you can go off and use. You know, there are different situations and different kind of placements of photo etch which kind of really require different types of glue. Really, you know, ideally you want to be using like a PVA type glue, right? Because when it comes to photo etch, tiny little pieces, you use something like super glue, and you've literally got seconds to, you know, push it down and get it in the right position. If you somehow don't get it in the right position within that small time frame, you've then got to rip that photo etch, bit of photo etch up to then reapply it. But by ripping up photo etch, you're going to potentially bend it, which is not what you want. Seat belts, right? Luckily, seat belts, we don't mind seat belts being a bit bent here and there because it kind of adds to the realism. Seat belts aren't just like, you know, cardboard straight, right? They've got a bit of fabric to them, a bit of flow to them. So a couple of bends with seat belts is fine. So I'm going to use super glue for this. Now, what we want to do, nice little tool, you know, nice little toothpick. I mean, there are sort of, you know, super glue applicators out there which some of you might get on with, but I'm kind of fine with a nice bit of super glue. But what we need to do now, right, is let's just kind of get this sort of back to being a bit straight again, because I did bend the back one to get the front part in. Right, so that's kind of nice and straight. Now we've got to fold this over, but let's actually get some glue on there. Right, so where we want a bit of glue, using our little toothpick here, is right here. I'm just going to put a little bit of super glue, right, because this is now going to fold over. Right, and then what we're going to do, right, if I can get you on camera, so if like it's been going out of focus now and then if it has, right, it's just really hard to do this, and we just want to fold this now over. Right, which is very sort of careful to do, and we need to sort of work sort of fast because we don't want this super glue drying too quickly, and we need to, you know, when we're about to lay it down, we do need to make sure it's in the right position that we want. And there we go, bit of a press down. Right, and then we turn it back over, and this is what we should be sort of looking at this stage. Right, so we've done all that work and we've basically just folded them over to make this nice bit of photo etch. I do believe there's another bend somewhere along the lines. I do believe we've got a bend over this piece as well, so I'm just going to hold this here. Right, and see that bit of a shiny bit in the middle. Right, we need to bend this over as well. Right, and that there basically completes our one side of our bit of photo etch. Seat belts basically do exactly the same the opposite side. The only thing you've got to sort of think about is there is what piece is it? It's this PP7, right? That just kind of goes on top as well, which is sort of no big deal. You just glue that one back on top. And that is basically the seat belt. The rest of the instructions do seem to get you there quite nicely. It was just that little bit of a complicated bit, but hopefully that kind of just shows you, you know, how we sort of need to sort of bend them and thread them through buckles and stuff, and hopefully that should get you there. But that was a really sort of, they didn't really quite add up, and when looking at the instructions, it was kind of a bit of a trial and error at first. You know, I was kind of feeding it through one eyelet because the instructions wouldn't show you, you know, exactly which one you got to thread it through, but hopefully that kind of shows you where you got to do it and whatnot. But let's now move along.